Okay. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm fucking wrong. Alrighty. Well, we are still waiting for adventurers to show up. So, you can now reply. Combo Weasel Bosnia. That is an interesting name. Combo Weasel Bosnia. Alright, welcome in. I hope you're having a fantastic evening. First chat of the stream. Interesting name. It shouldn't be Panda. Panda has 2 other accounts that currently, as far as I know, are not banned. So, okay, we're waiting for people to show up, and it wouldn't hurt me to declutter some tabs anyway. So, while we're waiting on people to pile in, we're gonna savor some 40k shit. Since when was that stopped him from creating? Yeah, it's fair.
G'day, guys and
Oh
gals.
shit, hang on. Didn't adjust my audio settings.
When you think of the heroes of the Horus Heresy on the Loyalist side, you probably think of Sigismund, or Bjorn the Fell-Handed, or Nakonai Sharikin. All of these warriors were legends, but while they struck awe into the hearts of even the traitors, only one Space Marine actually
Long-time
terrified
viewer.
him.
Panda's a longtime viewer who has quite a bit of a reputation around here. We'll just say it that way.
His name was Nasir Amit, the Flesh Terror, a blood angel so brutal that even the World Eaters revered him, a warrior so vicious and strong that he had no issue outmuscling a World Eater gladiator champion empowered by Khorne. Amit was as close to the Doomslayer as the Horus Heresy gave us, and he was also the founder of the Flesh Tearers, the most brutal loyalist chapter in the current setting. Yet I bet you've barely heard of him, so now we rectify that. Before we get started, another Friday, another major mini launch. The first since the Fallen Angel of Blood, I present the Flesh Terror, a warrior as proud as he is brutal. Although many shun his violent ways, you cannot deny their effectiveness. This model comes with 2 head variants, a helmetless version and a helmeted version. The armor is stunningly ornate, not to mention that big ass 2-handed chainsword, that naturally is currently being held in one hand because this dude doesn't skip sword day. This model, alongside many more available right now. Our
Never skip sword day, not when there's heretics to
Check out this
purge.
parade standard Wolfmaster of the Hunt.
Simply can't afford to skip forward. Skip forward.
Customers. You
Wow.
can get that exact standard
Am I having a
model for
stroke?
just under
Skip
$150,
sword
which includes the price
day.
of the model. Tell me who else offers that quality at that price. We've also introduced our Ultra Pro painting standard for those of you who want a god tier, one-of-one masterpiece that features every advanced technique under the sun. The kind of paint job you could enter into a competition or just use to flex on your opponents. The new painting service has been awesome so far. Keen to get more of these done for you guys.
Rufus, I'm never
Link is
okay.
below. Today we'll go over the rise and tragic fall of Nasir Amit, showing off his most badass moments and helping people understand the Flesh Terror a bit better and how noble he truly was under that dark exterior. Let's get into it. The Blood Angels are interesting due to their own contrast with themselves. On one hand, they are the most noble legion, Beautiful angels, artists, poets, noble to a fault, that was the influence Sanguinius had upon his legion. Before this, however, they were literally the worst legion. Everyone hated them. They were called the Revenant Legion, with people much preferring to serve alongside the World Eaters or the Iron Warriors rather than them. This is because the Revenants had the Blood Angels' taste for blood, but without ever being taught restraint. They were also sent to the most horrendous war zones and were forced to recruit from the most degenerate strands of humanity. To cope with their vileness, they turned their vicious habits into rituals. They would kill captured enemies and eat their brains, reliving their memories and sensations. They would also eat their own dead, so those dead revenants could live on through them, and whenever their legion master died, another revenant would eat their entire body and have their personality overwritten by the fallen revenant, sort of like a fucked up reincarnation process, out of necessity. The space marine ascension process is so thorough and advanced that it managed to wash away his mutations and frailty, making
What's up?
him a fully fledged space marine.
Who's been in the community longer? I'm pretty sure it's Panda. I'm almost positive it's Panda. It's hard to say because like so many of his original accounts are banned on Twitch. So not just in stream, but like on Twitch itself. So who knows, man? But, no, I'm pretty sure he's actually been around a little bit longer.
Marine, just as physically powerful as any other, if not more so in Amit's unique case. Amit followed the culture of the Revenants and was universally feared and hated by the Imperium. In one incident, after conquering a human world, a wounded female soldier on the...
How much longer... Oh, like how much longer has he been around? Hey, Kate. What's the gap between Panda finding us and Groofus finding us?
Oh, jeez. Maybe a few months?
Yeah, I feel like it was only maybe a month or two. It wasn't that long.
Yeah, because we've had them, so...
No. How high was his voice back then? Actually, his voice has pretty much been the same the entire time I've known him.
Yeah.
Or I should say the entire time that I've known what his voice sounded like. Sounded like there was a dick in his mouth the entire time. Grumble! What's good, my boy? Much love, man. I don't see you around as much as I'd like to anymore. Staying busy in the desert? Ah, greetings, Panda. How's it going?
enemy side was being treated by Imperial medics after her people's surrender. Amit approached her and wanted to eat her.
No shit.
The Imperial medics said
No shit,
She is
Groofus.
alive, she is surrendered, she is not to be eaten. Amit simply grabbed a rock and threw it at her head, exploding it and killing...
I was busy running errands, so I had to go get groceries at Costco. Spent a small fortune at Costco. As you do. And then I wasn't done at work. I left work early, on time, but I didn't get all my shit done. So I went to spend a small fortune at Costco because I like to eat. Literally, it was all food. And then I went back to work, and I had to essentially write emails and run reports for an hour. Not quite an hour. It took me like 40 minutes. And then I was able to get here and get the stream started. Yeah, I've been getting kind of wild with my schedule since my last contract ended. Oh, dude, I didn't know your contract ended. Did you get a new contract? Did you re-up with the same people? New contract, new company? What's going on? Sleep, host, going to Costco. Second mortgage intensifies. Dude, where's the lie, though? I don't remember going to Costco. Costco pizza isn't... Okay, I'll put it to you this way. Costco pizza is better than Little Caesars by a noticeable margin, but not as good as Pizza Hut or Domino's. There you go. Makes good road trip food. And it's cheap. It's dirt cheap. Like, look, if you're on a budget and you need to fatten up to survive winter, get a Costco membership, eat 3 slices of Costco pizza a day. Get one of their, get a couple of their frozen yogurt or chocolate ice cream dessert things with the berries in it. Ooh, like their cafeteria food is dirt cheap calories. Like it's actually disturbing how dirt cheap calories it is. Not bad. Fatten up for winter. There you go.
Didn't the fat electrician say something about the company tried to raise the prices, but the guy that originally started it got into like a big legal fight with them and was like,
Not a legal thing. The dude that started it was just like, no.
yeah.
They tried. They wanted to raise the prices on the food. And he was like, no. It stays this price. Figure it the fuck out. No.
Yeah. Yep. Oh.
I think the Costco food court items have been the same price. Yeah, that's what Fat Electrician was saying.
Yep.
When did you follow? Costco pizza is the definition of okay. It's a little better than okay. Like, and for me, I ate a lot of Costco pizza as a kid, so for me, it's kind of nostalgic, so it gets some points for nostalgia. Like, I eat Costco pizza and I'm like, oh, my childhood. And the best time, like, literally the best part of my childhood. So, Costco pizza's alright by me, man. A little better than alright, actually. No, between contracts right now, clearance got a delayed status, so they just didn't have enough work for me to do to justify renewing. I was under is looking to bring me back in a per diem way, so another attempt at clearance can just grind while letting me do some consulting work for them. Gotcha. That sucks. Why the hell would your clearance be taking so long when you're former military? That just doesn't make sense to me. Whatever. I saw on a Discord a picture and you saying about prayers. Prayers for me because I'm trying to make it through Yaren's course on Peterson Academy. And I will say, I'm not one to bullshit. Credit where it's due. He's much more tolerable on Peterson Academy than he is on his YouTube channel. Like, it is an order of magnitude less annoying to listen to him talk about money than it is to listen to him talk about everything else. Can we do VC? We can do VC if you're willing to not completely derail the stream, because I actually had content planned and I don't want to not get to it. So if you're willing to actually watch the stuff that I had on the roster and comment on the stuff and be engaged, yeah, we can do VC. Otherwise, no. Man, I had a top secret, but it expired in 2010.
They did not. I don't know what happened to the knack that we got, but it's not on our receipt and it's not with our stuff.
We didn't get it then. I don't remember putting it in there. So that's why I asked. I was like, I don't. Okay, we'll just have it shipped in. We'll have them send it. Okay. Oh, there's something. Oh. Weird. You should tell me more about that when it's just you and me, Grumple. I'm curious. No, his course is not particularly interesting to me. It's just that currently Peterson Academy is not doing they haven't uploaded a whole lot about money yet. Like that they're dude, you got to remember they're in beta. literally, Peterson Academy is still not even out of its beta. So, yeah, no, they don't have very much on finance yet. I had a Texas cheesesteak burrito from Buc-ee's, and it's pretty good. I'd be down to try that. I'll try anything that says cheesesteak. I have a Philly cheesesteak is one of those things. It's like, if you make a good Philly cheesesteak, you're one of my best friends. Because a Philly cheesesteak is one of my favorite things to eat, but almost no one makes it right.
I got close.
Okay, got really close. It was $9 after tax for me. What's up, Hoser? It's good to see you, friend. My favorite thing to eat is lasagna. Lasagna is nowhere near my favorite thing. Lasagna is okay. Hey, what's up, Drecky? It's good to see you, bro. We're going to try to get through this thing about Warhammer 40k lore really quick. And then we're going to get to the stuff that we actually had planned. What's this? Insane political ad claims U.S. citizens are being kidnapped. Ugh. Okay. We will definitely check that out if we have time. Panda, you seem to forget that I'm not the one that always fucking plays Kick the Panda. Priest ranks every Protestant heresy. Ah! This is honestly probably above my pay grade. I'm still young in my mastery of all of the different... I feel like my fundamentals are sound, but my extended education is not there yet. But again, if we have time. We're starting late. You know, considering how late we're starting, I'm just gonna shelve this. I'll watch it on my own time. Fuck it. How many... Okay, will you recommend to your mods to not overdo Kick the Panda? How many monikers does Panda... we've banned at least 20 accounts. Or, as the song goes, as the legends tell... 99 Panda accounts on the Twitch, 99 Panda accounts. You take one down, you ban it around. 105 Panda accounts on the Twitch. Sure thing, but also, dude, my guy, I hate to admit it, but friggin' YouTube is the way for monetizing. There's a pretty sizable community over there. I'm not monetized. It has different metrics, like 3K in the hour. Or an absolutely absurd metric, simply. We talk about that later, too. Yeah, I mean, we're on YouTube right now, so... The fuck? Did you guys fucking... Grumple, why the fuck... And every live stream... Panda, why the fuck... Oh, God. Grumple. Unban him. No one told you to do that. Why? Why, Grumple? God. Pain in my ass with this shit.
Zach, are you trying to get him to spurg out?
Right. God. Do you want the panda to spurg? Because this is how you get the panda to spurg.
What do you make now in...
Damn it. fucking... Now I have to actually go to Twitch. There we go. So you tell. No, I was thinking I had to go to Twitch because I wasn't sure if he saw that he'd gotten unbanned. I thought I would have to like tell him, hey, done. Oh shit, Boombox is live for the first time in forever. Fuck that guy. He was supposed to make me music and never did. Okay. And I still haven't gotten an answer. Yeah, Panda, you're not gonna get an answer. Chill. Okay? At least I wasn't the one to ban the Panda this time. I'm still waiting on an answer from Groofus.
Retrospect of that new atheist. What do you make now in retrospect of that new atheist movement?
They didn't kill belief in Christianity, they buried it. The civilization had long become secular since the boomers, really. So the atheist movement had been infected with...
I asked if we went in VC if you could be on task and actually, you know, engaging with the content and not just be like derailing the fuck out of everything. Because Groofus, this might be hard for you to believe. I know you might not believe this, but contrary to what you think, some people, some of the audience is actually here to listen to me and what I have to say. I know, it's funny to me too, but I swear to God, if that's your answer that bullshitting is fun, then we're not doing VC. Like, we can't just bullshit every night. Like, if we're gonna bullshit, it's gonna be on community night, and that's fine. That's what community night is for. We're not doing it Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
woke postmodern identity politics. And so I was something of a heretic to the atheist movement. And even now, though, I look back and I think, God, their arguments were terrible.
The story was there is no story. People couldn't live with that. So yeah.
It's not about rational argumentation.
You're more likely to be persuaded by Tolkien than William Lane Craig.
I don't want to be cliche about this, but I really liked C.S. Lewis, actually.
Brilliance of Lewis was he actually integrated those things together.
I'm not...
Hello, welcome back. I'm Justin Briley, bringing you some brief, mini, but fun conversations from the ARC conference here in London. Joined this time by both Bethel McGrew, but also Carl Benjamin, aka, what is it, Sargon of Akkad?
That's correct.
How long have you been doing that channel?
About 11 years now, something like that.
And for those who are a bit bemused and haven't heard of it, who is Sargon of Akkad?
So I'm quite old, and in the early days of the internet, it was a wild west. It was scary. And it was generally understood that you didn't use your real name for anything. And so you would use a pseudonym. And I happen to be a history fan. I happen to enjoy historical figures and stories. And so I just used Sargon of Akkad as my sort of screen name because everyone had their own, and you end up taking it from platform to platform just so you don't have to remember a different login and a different password. And so when I signed up to YouTube, it was just no different. I just was like, oh, girls, didn't think anything of it. I never thought I was ever going to produce a YouTube video. Then something like 3 years later, I was just a bit frustrated about things. So I recorded a very, very low quality video, put it up online, and I started getting views. And then suddenly I've got 500,000 subscribers, and then suddenly I've got 900,000 subscribers, and suddenly I'm in the news. And suddenly I'm like, why didn't I just use my real name? Because the thing is, the political space wasn't really there on YouTube when I started.
Well, it was a fast moving, evolving thing. And you caught...
I can hang out for an hour-ish for actual commentary if you want to do that. I have a thing a bit after that, no biggie either way. Is Sargon atheist or agnostic or something else? Yeah, if you're actually trying to do commentary, Grumple, 100%, because I like having conversations with you, and you don't often agree to be on task, so that's actually going to be a rare treat for me. Head adventure is table, bro. Head Adventurers table in the OG Discord.
The wind of, you know, this
by
developing
accident, by
moment.
complete accident.
Yeah, to my mind as well, in those early years of YouTube, it was actually quite a kind of atheisty dominated space. That was where a lot of the new atheists discovered each other and started hosting these quite skeptical channels. Was that kind of the vibe at the time of your channel?
It wasn't the vibe of my channel. I just presupposed all of those things, really. I was a fan of Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and things like that. And I had never, I didn't come from a religious background in any way.
You weren't kicking against anything in that?
No. So while I agreed with all of the sort of materialistic atheist arguments they were making, I was just a product of late modernity. And so everyone has those sort of presuppositions baked into them and they realize that I'm not.
You ended up kind of becoming, though, somewhat part of that milieu. And I remember there was some kind of an episode, and I wrote a book called The Surprising Rebirth of Belief in God, where I sort of the first chapter traces the rise and fall, arguably, of new atheism. And the way in which that movement, after a sort of honeymoon period, when everyone said, yes, God doesn't exist and religion's bad for you, they then started to disagree over all kinds of social issues. And I remember one particular moment that I heard about and watched when you had a big kind of...
That was my understanding. That's part of why we're watching this video, because I don't know what his exact views are, and I'm curious because I have a lot of respect for Sargon. So I want to hear it from him. Like, what does he actually believe?
a fallout with another atheist at the, what was it, the Mythicist Convention or something?
Yeah, the Mythicist Milwaukee Convention. Well, so the atheist movement had, not very long after its sort of blooming, been infected with woke postmodern identity politics, in particular feminism. And I didn't think this was actually the best way to conceive of male-female relationships and interactions. And so I was something of a heretic to the atheist movement, which is an interesting place to arrive at because, of course, there were definitely deep religious undertones to the moral system that they're promoting. And the Mythicist Conference was a confrontation.
I'm reasonably sure that you can stay on task. So as long as you promise, Panda, not to spurg out, and you promise that you're going to stay on subject matter of what we're actually discussing and not bring up random bullshit, then yes.
With you, Williams.
Rah. How's it going, my friend? Mm-hmm. Yes. Being an atheist just means you are a low-level religious person of Christianity, and agnostics are just soy boys. I disagree with that. I don't think that's an accurate characterization of atheists at all, actually. Especially in, I would say you could make that argument for Christianity. Most atheists are disaffected, Christian-adjacent people who have some kind of a chip on their shoulder against the concept of God for some reason. But Islam, absolutely not. People of Islamic attachment or affiliation are either Islamic or hardcore atheists, or they convert to Christianity. They're like, that is a culture and we'll stick with culture. That is a culture that breeds a sort of mental black or white mentality. What's this?
That is egg and cheese and meatball and Italian sausage.
Dope. How much protein all this?
I don't know.
You have no idea?
I don't know. Probably not.
It's like,
and that's pork belly.
I'm going with at least 50.
Yeah. But I added the pork belly because maximum fat, so.
And 4 scoop.
Do you want any more garlic salt or? Yeah.
Hang on, Panda, you were coming in and out. Say the first part of that again. Okay, yeah. And when people say that, honestly, first of all, no, that part of the world was more scientifically advanced. Islam had nothing to fucking do with it. And as soon as the religious zealots of Islam began taking over, scientific advancement ground to a screeching halt. And never picked back up.
And to lose something.
I don't. Yep.
But our influence.
What? So we just went down. We just went down on Twitch for a second. Interesting. Mm-hmm.
You wanted an almond milk?
Hmm?
You wanted an almond milk or water?
Almond milk. Yeah. The Arab world, by the standards we have in society today, in Western society, the Arab world has never been good. During the what is commonly referred to as the golden age of Islam. But yeah, sup Rufus, welcome in. But yeah, even during the so-called golden age, slavery was commonplace. Like, and I'm not even gonna. I don't need to expound on all of the sexual degeneracies that were normal and commonplace in those cultures. Like, so yeah. Hey, Gixer. Yes, it is. They be sexually degenerate. Okay.
Kept growing, and so eventually it came to the point where I was like, okay, well, we'll sit down and talk. And Thomas Smith was not happy that I wasn't prepared to be browbeaten by progressive.
This was the sort of opponent you were speaking to.
That's correct.
Right.
And he ended up storming off the stage.
Yes, there were some quite chaotic scenes I heard.
Yeah, I didn't think I even went that hard on him, really. But I just didn't agree with the moral framework he was proposing. And he had a really difficult time dealing with that. Yeah. So.
What do you make now in retrospect of that whole sort of new atheist movement?
They didn't kill belief in Christianity, they buried it. They were essentially kicking an open door. The civilization had long become secular, and since the boomers, really, the boomers were genuinely quite a secular generation, and just found themselves choosing not to believe for whatever reason. And so by the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, when you had Hitchens and Dawkins and Sam Harris and Dennett having arguments with the religious right, they had a kind of rootedness that the religious right didn't have in the popular culture. And so they could draw upon a set of everyone knows this sort of assumptions. And so, and even now though, I look back and I think, God, their arguments are terrible. Absolutely. I mean, I saw a clip of Sam Harris just from about a year or two ago saying, well, I look up into the heavens and I don't see God, so where is he? And it's like, Sam, after all of this time, how have you not realized that the concept of God is outside of the material universe? Like, I'm an atheist, you know, but your argument is just bad, right? And you fail to understand. But how did the religious right at the time let him get away with these arguments?
Well, I think there were some people trying not to let him get away with it, but sometimes it's the person with the loudest megaphone that you tends to.
Just as an atheist, I'm kind of embarrassed by it.
I want to bring in Bethel in a moment as my resident Christian to have a little bit of an engagement on these issues. But before we do get to that, Carl, even though you are still an atheist.
That kind of makes me curious, Scroger, what your ethnic background is. Like, what part of the world? You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to tell me, but I'm curious, what part of the world are you from, dude?
I sense that you've undergone a sort of conversion to arguably the value of Christian faith we hear at ARC, which is very much based around this idea of rediscovering the Christian foundations of the West and so on. And perhaps the bigger, most influential in that has been someone like Jordan Peterson in your experience.
Oh, and I'll need like a couple tablespoons worth of yogurt to yeah. Eurasia? Okay. Well, that narrowed it down to about half of the landmass on the planet, so I appreciate that. Okay, now that actually narrows it down. Ural Mountains. Where are they? Central-ish Russia. Uh-huh. Okay. Can't believe what? Bro, like... Why? Go... No, you're not. Okay. Yeah. That's a hell of a mountain range. Goddamn. That is... Fuck, that's a lot of mountains. Huh. Wow. What an uncultured swine. Yeah, that's why I went with uncultured swine. I believed that it was an honest mistake. Stupid bastard.
It's been interesting hearing what that journey has been for you, even though you don't accept the supernatural claims where you've landed regarding religion.
I'm not.
You know who we don't see? What was that? Okay, we're dropping that line of conversation right now and going back to the video.
I suppose I would put myself in the agnostic camp at this point rather than a hard atheist. Because there are arguments that the religious, and not just Christian either, the religious side makes that do necessitate an answer. Like, I mean, fundamentally, the materialist conception is based on something coming out of nothing, which is a very difficult thing to square for anyone who's concerned about logical consistency on how they feel the universe was created. So the question of the Big Bang and all that, it just kicks the can further down the road. Okay, well, what came before that? Start with that. What's going on? So there are lots of things. It's not Jordan Peterson for me, actually, who, but I appreciate for a lot of people. He has been instrumental, and that's good. Because I actually do think a revival of the Christian heritage of the left is a good idea. The problem is, I think that it's kind of like asking a bunch of disabled people to just stand up and start walking. if you haven't nurtured that part of you, I think it kind of shrivels up and dies. And so this is why it's I'm not adverse to the idea of a religious awakening.
That's pretty cool,
I just
Dreki.
don't feel with it, right? But for me, it was actually I don't want to be cliche about this, but I really liked C.S. Lewis, actually. I read Chesterton and found him a bit of a bore, actually. Chesterton's a very strange figure because about half of what he says in his books and what I read is, I'm like, God, that is a profound insight. And then about the other half is just like, that's obvious nonsense. It's obvious nonsense. And I like the sort of stuffiness of Chesterton. Like, so as an aesthetic, I like that. But C.S. Lewis is the guy.
Yes, well, C.S. Lewis famously said, a young atheist can never be too careful about his reading. So it's fun to hear that you're...
Yeah, like I said, I didn't want to be too cliche about it, but he makes some perceptive insights that are actually important.
Well, I'd like to return to some of those perceptive insights. Ethel, thank you for taking the chair again to sort of be the foil to what Carl is talking about here.
What? Okay. It is completely off topic. I'm going to humor it just because it is relevant to what's going on in the world right now. You get one and only one. I'm really hoping that Trump is engaging in a game of my dick is bigger, so stop it, chicken. And that we don't actually commit troops to the damn thing. If anything, if he does choose to do anything, we just fly a bunch of planes over their airspace and reset them to the Stone Age. I don't want that, but I'd be more okay with that than troops on the ground. I'm hoping that's what Trump does. What I think Trump will do, I don't have a damn clue, man. That guy is crazy like a fox. It's the No Kings protests aren't the thing that's... The question is wrong, Panda, because we've been heading towards a civil war for a long time. What we are merely waiting on the Flashpoint event. We're waiting on the Event Horizon event. And whether one of the No Kings protests will be that, I don't know. But what I'm confident of is that the powder keg is not going to diffuse. It might sit there vibrating, being ominous for another decade. Hell, it might sit there vibrating, about to explode for another 3 decades. Doubt it, but possible. But I do think eventually we're going to have another civil war because of the political divide. I think it's unavoidable. I'm sorry, I was reading chat. One more time. I don't think so, but it's possible. I'm not ruling it out by any stretch. Very possible, but things will get bad enough eventually. Burrito, you saying that you think Trump is a fascist dictator has all the weight of a quark. Means nothing to me. Yes. No. No. Well, first of all, the Higgs boson is not theoretical. We know it exists. Second of all, a quark is smaller. Yeah. Quark and Panda, We don't know if that's the thing. Quirks are so small, we don't know if they have weight. Yeah. What? If I remember correctly, the Higgs boson is a very fancy subatomic particle. If I remember correctly, I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it is. Don't fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. I'm very open to being wrong about that.
Any thoughts on, from where you're standing, the journey that Carl has described? Are you seeing that other people going on a similar journey in any way?
Yeah, for sure. But if I could just kind of riff on, because he had.
What is your opinion on South Carolina? Will it separate from the states eventually? Weird that you asked specifically about South Carolina. No idea. I don't know enough about South Carolina's politics or the demographics there to answer that. Left or not. What wasn't? Bro, you gotta be more careful with that shit. Like, dude. Right, how do you fucking act... Right. That doesn't, pay the fuck attention to what you're clicking, you stupid bitch! Like... Are you on a... Anywho. California? When there is a civil war, California is a right-wing state. That state... depends on if Arizona is still right-wing when that happens. But yeah. California is full of people that don't have a chance in hell of standing up against any actual aggression. There's like 5 of them. There's like 5 of them. So not only that, but their practical needs infrastructure, food, basically non-existent because California has made it so cost prohibitive to produce food there. So all you have to do is blockade the roads and the entire state starves to death in a month.
So many interesting things to say there. I wrote a piece last year called Richard Dawkins Didn't Do It. It's kind of the same idea that you were getting at there, that they didn't really kill Christianity, they buried it. So where I come from in the States, the Episcopalian denomination used to be kind of like America's established church. We never had an official established church, but it's like the unofficial established church. But then the mainline grew old and declined and died. And that was all happening through the
All right,
50s and the
peace out.
60s and the 70s already. And so that's, I think, what Carl is getting at, the kicking an open door. That's what happened in the United States as well. And you,
California can't live on weed. That's funny.
still, of course, did have a religious right. There was that kind of resurgence in the 80s. But I think there was just a lot of silly paranoia around this idea of, oh no, that we're going to have like a Christianism and they're going to rise up and take over. They really weren't. They were the minority. Everybody made fun of them. And so, for Hitchens and Dawkins and those guys to sort of go after the fundamentalists, it wasn't really very brave. It was like picking the already picked on kid in the class,
Right.
The other thing I would say is it's funny that they called themselves the new atheists because nothing that they said was new. It was all just it rewarned David Hume, and David Strauss and like all this kind of 19th century, and then going back to just the presumption that miracles do not happen. I guess that's Matthew Arnold, right? And so I would say the same thing about the quote unquote new atheists that I would say about those old atheists, which is that they won the PR war, but they lost the argument. I don't think the arguments were ever really any good. And there were people who
No, they weren't.
wrote against David Hume. There were scholars who wrote against Strauss. And it's just unfortunate.
And you know how you know that the atheist argument was never good? Because the modern online atheist bro can't make an argument without eventually devolving into Sky Daddy. Like, that is the essence of their argument. Sky Daddy, you believe in Sky Daddy, huh? It's never more sophisticated than that. Quite possibly. It's that way. It's that way with a lot of classical, or not even classical, like a couple hundred years ago, philosophical figures. So many intellectuals try to stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. And with very rare exception these days, fucking none of them succeed. They're all brown-nosing little shits that pretend to have a thought in their head. And really, they're just rehashing old shit or telling overt lies. Sam Harris! What have you been trying to say, Grumple? No, yeah, I have too. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not being facetious. Yeah. No, I mean 100% literal. I've had, both in conversation and text, people say Sky Daddy. That's their actual argument. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good looking out, bro, because, yeah, I don't bullshit about these things. Like, literally, that is the best they have. When you corner them on, like, for example, there is no atheist argument to, hey, why haven't you guys been able to crack abiogenesis yet? Hey, what's up with abiogenesis? You say Jesus rising is so miraculous. Explain to me how abiogenesis happens with entropy being in the equation, and not one of them can answer. Not fucking one of them. Yes, Burrito, I shit you not. I have gotten into so many arguments with leftists. And here's the thing. Even if they don't say the words Sky Daddy, what they are saying amounts to Sky Daddy. oh, you really believe that some being of all powerful. Okay, bro, you can't prove the Big Bang. You can't prove abiogenesis. You can't prove evolution. You can't even fucking prove gravity. Like, come on! Yeah. I could tell about biogenesis and entropy, but first, no, you can't. No, you can't. You cannot explain how. Go. You know what? I'm open to being proven wrong. Go ahead. Take a crack at explaining how abiogenesis is possible, even in the face of the physical reality of entropy in the universe. Go ahead, dog. Spotlight's on you. Wolf, my good friend. How's it going, sir? Like, I really don't think atheists understand that abiogenesis is the Islamic dilemma of atheism. The Islamic dilemma is the nail in the coffin of the Islamic religion as far as apologetics go. Basically, it boils down to, if the Quran is true, then the Bible is true, and if the Bible is true, then the Quran is false. Are you, yeah, is your hand over your microphone or something? That's better. That's better. Whatever you did, do that. Yes, go. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time? I'm not fucking with you. I didn't hear you. Yes. Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, do that. Still can't hear him on stream. We don't have an exact answer on the origin of life, and that is one of the theories. There's a lot of theories, and atheists who say that is a correct theory are dumb because we don't have an answer for origin of life, so I cannot tell you if the Bible is correct or abiogenesis is correct. Well, that has nothing... Burrito, that doesn't... Burrito, the point I'm making with abiogenesis and entropy is entropy disproves abiogenesis. Abiogenesis as a theory is literally mathematically impossible because of the physical reality of entropy. Ask a physics major, ask anyone with a cursory understanding of physics, even a hobbyist level understanding of physics, and they can tell you that entropy is the mathematical degradation of the physical universe into chaos, into disorder. That is the natural progression of matter over time because of the force of entropy that is as solid and measurable and definite of a thing as anything else we've documented. Gravity, combustion, anything. Okay? We know entropy exists. Therefore, it is literally impossible that a bunch of particles floating around in the ocean randomly collided in such a way to create a functioning cell. It is impossible. To say that that happened and to say that that happened and to say it's impossible that God exists is the most extreme form of cognitive dissonance that I could possibly articulate to you. It is insane. So, no, abiogenesis is not what happened. It's literally fucking impossible. A better explanation for the explanation that there has to be a higher power is energy cannot be destroyed, only converted into other forms. The impossible does not exist. It's just probability. It is not improbable. First of all, the impossible does exist. Like that, I don't like it when people say that the impossible does exist. We've proven it mathematically. And if you want to believe in science, if you want to say human science means anything, then we've proven that inside of our material universe, with our understanding of physics, yeah, some things are impossible. That's thing one. Thing two, okay, let's pretend for a second that it is merely improbable. After the one is so many tens of billions of zeros behind the point, I think for the sake of casual discussion, it's fine to use the word impossible. Fucking A. Any thoughts about that panel before I hit play? What proves that things are impossible? I think it's fair to say that what happens at the quantum realm does not scale up to the big boy realm. There seems to be some kind of a barrier where things stop going all fucky cattywampy. And what that barrier is, whether or not we'll ever mathematically nail it down, sure. But the fact of the matter is, if shit worked at the physical level, not the physical, that's not the right word for this conversation. If things worked at the macro level, the same way at the macro level as they do at the quantum level, people would randomly teleport, cars would change their paint job on their own free will, cars would have free will, like a bunch of random shit would happen all the time, and it never does. The physical universe that we observe follows a consistent set of rules. And so clearly, just because the math says that this thing at the quantum level is happening, and even if we observe evidence that thing at the quantum level is happening, that clearly does not mean it scales up to the observable universe. Because it obviously fucking doesn't.
Fortunate that many of them, they're pretty obscure. We don't really know what their name
is. Quantum gravitation theory bullshit? I have no idea. That one, I don't know much about that one. That one is above my pay grade. And that's what Panda was originally asking. How do you prove? It's not that you prove the impossible. I said math has proven that some things are impossible. And I mean, dude, go look at a mathematical proof for it. I'm not a fucking mathematician or a physicist. I've had equations explained to me that prove that some things are impossible. I can't recite them to you. I'm not a fucking physics major. I just know that within the bounds of human science, we have definitively said, okay, yeah, this thing is impossible. God damn it, Grumple. I'm an author, not a goddamn physicist. Like what in mathematics? Okay. Apparently this far. Don't use your intelligence to justify your beliefs. Also, Dan. Quick derail from the derail. As the world's highest IQ... Oh yeah. I watched a video. Someone was talking about this earlier. As the world's highest IQ record holder, I believe the Bible is the perfect, eternal, and final word of God. Therefore, the Bible doesn't need to be updated. The world needs to catch up. You know what's funny is, so this guy actually is the smartest man alive on record. And I know a guy, not the smartest man alive, obviously, but I know a guy very intelligent. I consider him a friend. I hope he considers me the same. And he basically said the same thing. I'm not talking about you. His name is Pei. Jeez. Darwin was a racist and a eugenics believer, which was the total basis of his theories. No, don't touch the derail. It's like touching the third rail of the subway. As someone who knows significantly more about the Bible and knows the Bible significantly better, I like how you just assert that out of nowhere, like you know Mr. Kim. These beliefs are just dogmas that are not supported by any data whatsoever. Appealing to IQ to validate these dogmas is a laughable appeal to authority. What an absolute joke. Dan over here pretending... Dan over here pretending that he knows more about a given subject than literally the smartest person alive. Talk about fucking hubris. That is true. But to assume that you know more about something than the smartest person alive is obvious hubris. It's true you might know more about a given subject, but you don't know that unless you know the person personally. Make sense? Yeah. IQ is a touchy subject because in one it serves a purpose and it sometimes helps psychologists. I wouldn't say it's a touchy subject. IQ is what it is. Some people are just butthurt that it correlates with race. IQ is not a flawed concept. It correlates with race, and you can be mad about it, but it does. The only reason social scientists and psychologists started saying, oh, IQ is flawed, is because the data overwhelmingly started showing the IQ race correlation, and a bunch of people got really fucking uncomfortable. IQ is not flawed. It's a very solid metric to use. Genetics is a what? A famous example of a mathematical proof that demonstrates something is impossible is the proof of the impossibility of trisecting an angle using only a compass and a straight edge. There you go. Leave it to algebra to fucking give you some long-winded pedantic shit. Let's Google that to make sure AI isn't just making up some random bullshit. Yep, there you go. Well, so the impossibility of trisecting an arbitrary angle using only a compass and a straight edge was proven by Piers Walt in 1837. His proof, restated in modern terminology, uses the concept of field extensions, a topic now typically combined with only construct numbers that are obtained by successively taking square roots. Trisecting an angle, however, requires solving a cubic equation, which cannot be done with just square roots. Bam. No problem, Burrito. No problem. And don't ever think that I'm like trying to be mean or put you down or anything. I just Some things I know. I don't know everything. Some things I fucking know. And if I know it, I say it with confidence because I fucking know. And I just get really annoyed sometimes when people won't just take my word for it because, god damn it, I'm trustworthy. I don't fucking lie, and when I find out I'm wrong, I admit it. So anyways. Moving on the paper, but move a dimension higher. Yeah, well, you know, if we can access the fourth dimension, a lot of crazy shit suddenly becomes possible, but unfortunately, we're just not quarks now, are we?
Sorry. A couple people might vaguely know who William Paley is because of the watch thing, right? But by and large, we've sort of forgotten who those people are. So, you know, a lot of my family's project, a lot of what my father works on and his kind of resourcement, is trying to kind of revive the...
Two half and half, all garbage.
It was bucked up.
All bucked up? Oh, why did you do that? You gotta, Kate, don't waste the bucked up, only giving me bucked up. You gotta cut it with the garbage so we can get rid of the garbage.
The memory, sort of raise the dead, in a sense. And...
Huh?
I was trying to do something nice for you, Jeremy.
And reclaim the forward position, in a sense. And maybe now that New Atheism doesn't even have the cultural clout that it used to, maybe now is a good vulnerable moment to strike, you know.
I suppose one of the things that's become clear to me is that the story that the New Atheists told just didn't have the power to actually move people, and
It didn't tell a story.
it didn't tell us. There was a kind of a non-story at one level.
The story was there is no story. People couldn't live with that, so yeah.
And so you have people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali going on this journey, you know, to Christian faith and so on. I guess, I'm kind of, you're obviously, you can see the value, you can see sort of, but you're not convinced at a personal level, obviously, by this stuff.
It's not about
About your racial IQ point, the bell curve, claimed between... Please list average IQ by race and cite the research and data that backs the number up. Be concise and brief as possible. Racism or any bullshit like that.
rational argumentation. That's the thing. It's about the feeling of spirit inside you.
Okay. So do you think that the kind of apologetics that, to some extent, Bethel represents, you know, there is a kind of objective evidence for, you know, the historicity of Scripture and there are good philosophical arguments of God, that's not going to move you?
No, and I think that you're actually playing on the enemy's turf too much with those sorts of arguments. Not to, like I think that what you have to do is have a narrative that's so persuasive and so compelling, and something that is heroic to people that they can't help but feel enchanted by it, because the point of it is trying to bring magic back to the world. And so, I'm a very big fan of mythology.
Okay. Research suggests average IQ varies by race, but findings are debated and influential by environmental factors. Yeah, like how much food they get to eat and how much disease they incur and all kinds of shit. But the fact of the matter is, race is genetic, and about 70% of IQ is also genetic. The evidence leans toward differences being partly due to genetics and partly due to socioeconomic factors. Yeah, it turns out if you can't feed your kids, their brains don't develop so good. Controversy exists with some studies criticized, blah, blah, blah. All right. Afro-Americans, blacks, around 85. Latino Americans, 89. White European Americans, 100 to 103. Asian Americans, 106. Jewish Americans, 113. Sub-Saharan Africans, oof, 70. Oof. So, anyways, get shit on. Shut up, Panda. I mean, IQ doesn't go up or down because of behavior, except insofar as your behavior affects the quality of your brain. And once you're past 25, your brain is largely set. What you now have is pretty much what you got, with maybe very limited exception depending on neuroplasticity. We're still learning more about neuroplasticity, but. Well, yeah, that, and they also believe, as a related item to that, they believe in the blank slate, where everyone who's born is a perfect blank canvas for the world to do whatever the fuck they want. That's why we got the twin study. That's why John Money did that horrendously evil thing. Because fundamentally, leftists don't believe in the soul. They don't. I know, right? Some salt got into my windpipe. Hang on. Oh, have you ever had fucking garlic salt in your windpipe? That shit sucks. Oh. Food with garlic salt on it. Kate, what did you make again?
I made an egg bake, and it had sausage and meatballs and cheese in it.
There you go. We've seen a persistent one standard deviation black gap since we've had IQ testing, right? And yeah, look, Burrito, I'm not technically incorrect. IQ and race run together. Now, you can have a fair discussion. I'm open to the discussion about why I said the thing. It's true. That's thing one. Thing two, again, genes, mental factors like what your mom eats while you're in her, the quality of your own diet, whether you're breastfed, whether you're born vaginally or C-section. There's so many different things that affect the development of your brain. Yeah, the remaining 30% is socioeconomic factors, your environment factors, but 30% of your IQ, if you're genetically predisposed to what, so 30% of 100 would be 30. So at absolute most, your IQ is going to swing by 30 points depending on your development. And so it's hard to study whether or not you can for sure find out whether someone's IQ was altered by their upbringing or not. We do have data on that, but it's not dynamite. It's rock solid yet. I missed the part before neuroplasticity for IQ. Absolute. I don't think that's been proven. Oh, is it? Okay. Wait, say that one more time, Grumple. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. I do think we should legalize psychedelic research. Also, race absolutely exists in humans, and I don't give a fuck if you're a biologist. Race exists in humans. Like, it is so laughably. You want to talk about religious dogma? It is religious dogma in the scientific community that race doesn't exist in humans. Panda, it's widely available. Just look it up.
Here we go. Get you the other booby. There. Did you get too hot?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that that's your argument, Burrito, when you can say the exact same thing about dogs, and yet literally everyone acknowledges that different breeds of dog exist. Everyone agrees that dogs have races. There's the Fun Boy Family Time Labrador race, and there is the Alpha Chad Wolfhound race. So everyone agrees that races of dog exist, and yet that 0.1% of DNA difference in humans, we have we have genetic proof for humans too. Biologists just misrepresent it. You think there aren't genes that color your skin a certain way, or slant your eyes a certain way, or link you to a common ancestor? There absolutely are. Saying, oh, this white guy and this white guy have a way different genetic profile than comparing this black guy and this black guy, or excuse me, this white guy and this black guy, so therefore race doesn't exist. That's non sequitur. That is an absolute non sequitur. That's not how logic works. Outliers do not prove, outliers do not disprove categories. That's not how it works. But that's the argument that the biologist community makes. Because, again, uncomfortable conversations around race. Exactly. Wow, dude. Lewontin's fallacy refers to the misrepresentation of Richard Lewontin's 1972 analysis of human genetic diversity. Lewontin found that approximately 85% of genetic variation occurs within populations, while only 15% occurs between populations. He concluded that racial classification is not justified by genetic data. However, this argument has been criticized for ignoring the correlation structure of genetic data, which can reveal meaningful differences between populations. A.W.F. Edwards later argued that while individual genetic loci can do so with high accuracy. Boom. Critics of Lewontin, including Edwards, have been accused of misrepresenting his argument, as Lewontin's focus was on the taxonomic validity of racial classification. The debate continues, with some arguing that Lewontin's conclusion was a non sequitur. It was, as small between-race variance does not negate the usefulness of racial categories in certain contexts. Boom. Look at that. I touched on a long-standing argument in the field of biology that I'd never even heard of before. So Panda is arguing I should be allowed to have a timber wolf, as all canine species are the same. It's like saying that. That video? Yeah. Oh, nice. Is it like content stuff? Nice. Well, have fun, dude. Thanks for being on. Gotcha. Much love, my friend. Alright, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna put some stuff on the kitchen counter. Ugh. Oh, my hamstring. There's one more in there, so you can have the other one. All right, hey, look, Burrito, you can keep talking about it in the comments if you want, but I'm just gonna, the thing about, well, actually, we're gonna watch this video, and then I'm gonna say what I want to say, and then we're gonna get back to the other thing. Yes.
You had this conversation you put on your Substack with Jordan Peterson about cognitive inequality. I think it's titled "Wrestling with Cognitive Inequality." Yeah. This particular topic of just IQ differences between groups. Why is it so dangerous to talk about? Why this particular topic?
Well, it's like you're calling black people inferior. It's like you're saying they're genetically inferior. That's what people are saying. It's like you're rationalizing the disparity of outcomes by reference to the intrinsic inferiority of black people. If you say cognitive ability matters for social outcomes, if you say cognitive ability exists, people really are different in terms of their intellectual functioning. And if you say cognitive ability differences are substantial between racially defined populations, the sum of that, there is cognitive ability, it matters, and it differs by race, is the conclusion that outcome differences by race are in part due to natural differences between the populations. People find that to be completely offensive and unacceptable. So that's what I think is going on.
Can you steel man that case that we should be careful doing that kind of research? So this has to do with research. It's like the Nazis used Nietzsche in their propaganda, right? You can use, white supremacists could use conclusions, cherry pick conclusions of studies to push their agenda. Can you steel man the case that we should be careful?
Yeah, I could do it at 3 levels. One is, what do we mean by cognitive ability? So there's many different kinds of intelligence a person might say. How good are IQ tests at measuring other kinds of human capacities that are pertinent to success in life, like temperament, like emotional intelligence, and so on. So intelligence is not a one-dimensional thing measured by G. The cognitive psychologists talk about G, the general intelligence factor, which is a statistical construction. It's a factor analytic resolution of the correlation across individuals in their performance on a battery of different kind of tests, and they use that to define a general factor of intelligence. And a person could say that is a very narrow view of what human mental capacities actually are, and that it's much better to think about multidimensional measures of human mental functioning rather than a single cognitive ability measure, a so-called IQ, which is a narrow construction that doesn't capture all of the subtle nuance of human difference in functioning. Functioning is not just the ability to recite backwards a sequence of numbers. I say 8, 7, 9, 5, 3, 2. You say 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. It's not just that. Intelligence is a complex management of many different dimensions of human performance, including things like being able to stick with a task and not give up, things like being able to discipline and control your impulses so as to remain focused and so forth. That could be one dimension. I could start by questioning the very foundation of the argument for racial differences in cognitive ability by saying that your measure of cognitive ability is flawed. I could go to a higher level. I could say what we're really interested in is social outcomes, and the question of what factors influence social outcomes extends well beyond mental ability to many other things. So here's an example. Visual acuity. How well do you see? You're not wearing glasses. I am. Visual acuity varies between human beings. Some people see better than other people do. Visual acuity can be measured. I can put you at the chart and can you identify and read that bottom line in small print or not? So we can measure visual acuity, and it varies between human beings. Visual acuity is partly genetic. I think that's undoubtedly true. We inherit genes that influence whether or not we are nearsighted or farsighted or astigmatic or whatever. So visual acuity differs between people and can be measured and is under genetic control. On the
Somebody growling at you.
other hand, corrective lenses allow for us to level the playing field between people who are differently endowed in terms of visual acuity. Likewise, social outcomes are what we're really interested in: employment, earnings, whether or not they're law-abiding, how do they conduct themselves and their families and so forth amongst individuals. Yes, social outcomes are influenced by so-called cognitive ability, but they're influenced by many other things as well. If there are interventions that can be undertaken in society that level
Amnes.
Is that you waving, or what are you doing?
I love you. There is no between in genetics.
the playing field between people who have different natural endowments of cognitive ability is less significant. Just like it's less significant that people differ with respect to how well they see when corrective lenses allow for the leveling of that playing field. There are, in fact, interventions, educational interventions, early childhood interventions that have been shown to level the playing field to create better life outcomes for people, even if they happen to be endowed with low intelligence. So a second level of arguing against this whole program of research on human differences in intelligence is to observe that, yes, human beings and perhaps racially defined groups may differ on the average in intellectual endowment, but there well may be social interventions that level the playing field, whether it's in education or in other kinds of programmatic interventions, especially for the poor. A final level of argument is the one that you alluded to, which is
markers produced for which showed near perfect correspondence with the four self-reported categories.
Ow.
Get shit on! Get shit on! Your ass! Your ass! Give me a study. Boom. He's so quick, too. Took him like a second to drop that bitch in chat. Shang. Oh, that was good.
that if you talk like this, you're going to encourage a kind of politics which is very ugly, and it's best to frame the discussion in ways that don't put emphasis on racially defined natural differences between populations. That's an argument that I am myself personally conflicted about. On the one hand, I think, you know, those people are just stupid. It is racist, okay? On the other hand, I think the calculation, we shouldn't do this kind of research. Suppose I'm at the National Science Foundation. A research team submits a proposal. The proposal proposes to undertake a study. The study would explore the extent to which people and racial groups differ with respect to their intellectual performance and how that's influenced by their explore that subject. You might get the wrong answer. And if you get the wrong answer, the white supremacists will be encouraged. Well, that is presuming before the research is done that I know the outcome of the research and that I can calculate what the political consequence of the research outcome is going to be. That's assuming the thing before you even know what the thing actually is. It's a kind of omniscience. It presumes that you, as the master of the universe, can tell people what it is that people are being treated like children, what it is that they're capable of knowing and what it is that they're not capable of knowing. It would be like someone saying to Einstein, I don't know about that special relativity theory. You know, it could well lead to the development of technologies that would allow nuclear weapons. Or someone saying to Oppenheimer, who was a physicist overseeing the Manhattan Project where the U.S. developed a nuclear weapons capacity, don't carry out that project because the results of acquiring that knowledge may be more than we can deal with. Or someone saying to someone doing biomedical research who's interested in exploring the nature of the human genome, don't carry out that experiment, that cloning undertaking, whatever, because the consequences could be deleterious. Well, the consequences could be deleterious. The consequences could also be the cure of cancer. The consequences could also be being able to generate electric power without producing carbon effluent. So who are you to tell me, you being the person in the political position to control the research, what the consequence of doing the research is? I think I don't want to cede that kind of power to politicians over the course of human inquiry. So, yes, I would want there to be regulations governing the use of biologically sensitive and potentially dangerous pathogens in a lab in Wuhan or any place else. I would not want to simply leave that to laissez-faire. On the other hand, I think that the tendency to try to shut down inquiry on behalf of supposed adverse political consequences is the road to it.
Before I answer that question, BV, I would like to know why you're asking. Jurassic Park when? Right, Roland. What was that, Panda? He said, brother, are you for Israel?
Ignorance and impoverishment at the end of the day for humankind, denying ourselves the potential benefits of that kind of inquiry. I think we need to take our chances with inquiry rather than
Based, Dreki.
to try to control it. And I feel that way about the exploration of human intelligence as much as anything else. So you've asked me to steel man the case against research.
I don't even understand that question. It doesn't answer. And let me, I'm just going to answer your original question. With the understanding that the true Israel is the Christian church as elected by Jesus Christ, the second, or I'm sorry, not the second coming, the first incarnate coming of the living God, and that the Christian church is the true Israel as outlined in the New Testament. With that understanding, yes, I am for Israel, 100%. Well, if he means the nation state called Israel, he's going to have to tell me why the fuck he's asking. We have.
Charles Murray is famous
Greetings,
for popularizing. And I've said,
what was that, Grump? I'm sorry. What was that, Wolf? Amen to that.
A, your measure of intelligence is single dimensional and it ought to be multidimensional. I've said B, the consequences of people's differing in intelligence depends not only on the natural endowments of the people, but also on the environment and the potential for intervening in that environment through one or another kind of instrument, as the metaphorical example of the use of corrective lenses to level the playing field between people with different visual acuity indicates. But finally, I've said, yes, research on racial differences in IQ can foster political beliefs that we would regard to be obnoxious. On the other hand, to presume that what we don't know yet and might find out from the research is going to be harmful is to assume a kind of presumption or of knowing what the outcome of unknown processes might be.
This is a very dumb thing that you just said, Burrito. That study proves we can identify race at a major scale, but it never proves that race exists. Burrito, do you hear yourself? It proves that we can identify something that we don't know exists. Like,
What? What the frick?
I would assume so with a comment like that. Brother, do you know that Israel was the first to attack? Brother, do you know that Israel was the first to attack the Iranian embassy in Baghdad, Iraq 24 years ago? Maybe you don't understand. Oh, I get it. You're for the goat fuckers. All right, hey, look, BV. I'm by no means Israel, bro. I'm not saying that Israel can do no wrong. I'm not a fan of the Israeli government. Israel was behind Epstein, and Epstein was subhuman, demonic trash, and he was funded by Mossad, you know, the intelligence wing of Israel. So there's a lot of evil in that government that eventually I believe the nation state will be called to answer for. At the same time, the Muslim world is a bunch of pedophilic, inbred goat fuckers. So you're not going to get any symptoms. I'm seeing symptoms. Well, you're going to get symptoms, you know, from all the STDs, from the goat fucking, and the inbreeding. But you're not going to get any sympathy from me. Islam is the most ass-backwards, satanic cult that is called a religion in the world. And if you are going to come in here and whine and cry, oh, Israel fought back because we want to genocide them, fuck off. Like, just fuck off. I never said that. You know, Panda, sometimes I just speak in hyperbole, and I don't actually think about the full implications of the thing I'm saying in the moment because I just like to be hyperbolic. But now I have to really consider, I have to really sit down and ask myself, damn, which is worse? So, thanks for that. If only the paternity test. Hang on. If only. Sorry. Wait, we cannot say. Okay, I'm save Aisha from Mohammed. I mean, I would say every taxonomic category that differentiates between. They're still talking about race. That's bullshit. Just hitting the country. I understand you, brother. Why don't they hit Saudi Arabia, which dismembered a journalist in a barrel? Oh, what's the deal? I don't know what the deal is, and frankly, I don't care. Look, in my country, where I live, I have people that fought and got maimed for my country, dying of exposure, hunger, and overdose on the streets. I have children being sex trafficked. I have rampant crime. I have a bunch of third world shit fucks from God knows where invading my country across the southern border. I've got about 1,000,001 corrupt politicians in places of high power, many of whom are pedophiles, and about 12 dozen other serious problems that I really want fixed. So frankly, look, I don't fucking care what Israel did, or Iran, or Saudi Arabia. I care about my country. Okay? Okay. Yeah, if we let them. But that's the thing. They lead to implications for America because we can't keep our dick out of other people's holes. If we would just stop fucking intervening, it wouldn't affect us nearly as much. And also, oh, he was time. God damn it! Did you guys ban him? No, I just. Okay, I wish it hadn't. But anyways. Oh, I mean, if it goes there, you can ban him, but... But hey, look. BV, if you want to say I'm a hypocrite, you have nothing to base that on, because I've been remarkably consistent about fuck the Middle East my entire life. So I'm not a hypocrite. And, cunt, I prefer asshole. Now, and more than asshole, I prefer dick. You know why? Because dicks fuck assholes. Eat a dick. Man. Well, you're a hypocrite. Yeah.
Which we ought to be very slow.
Hey!
What is this thing you're doing? Are you waving? Is that what you're doing?
Why are you reaching out for daddy? Like you're drunk. She's like, I am drunk. Drunk on that titty.
To embrace because if we had done so in the past, we wouldn't have nuclear power. There's a lot of things that we wouldn't know. I mean, what were people saying about Darwin and exploration of the evolution and origin of the species? They were afraid that it was going to, in effect, disprove the religious-based accounts of, what were they saying about Copernicus and et cetera, et cetera. So,
That was a masterful layering of, quote, wrestling with cognitive inequality. You dragged in nuclear research, Copernicus, Darwin, biomedical research with genetics, even COVID and the lab leak. I mean, that was just fun to listen to.
Part of her problem earlier was that she did get too hot and throw up on herself because
Okay. All right. To Tay Burrito, to now say what I was going to say. This is something that I run into a lot, and it's something that I've been wrestling with because it's kind of hard to articulate it to people who are very interested in what the science says, myself among them. But here's the reality. You can't rely on the research totally for everything all the time. And that should be self-evident just with a cursory glance at the issue with pure logic. But especially it should be apparent because the research tries to tell you things like race doesn't exist when opening your eyes demonstrates that that is not true. Saying that there is no racial categories in humanity and that race does not have an immense impact on human traits, behaviors, culture, etc. It's laughable in the face of opening your fucking eyes. So, I'm sorry, I am never going to let the research convince me that my eyes don't see something ever again. The research told us the COVID vaccine was safe. Perfect example. Yep, another great one. Perfect example. You can slant data you can slant data 6 ways from Sunday. You can make numbers say almost anything if you know how to present them. So, no. Sorry. Race exists, and I don't fucking care what the scientific establishment says.
And it's the enchanting nature of it. Like, I don't care if Beowulf was a real person or not. The stories and the heroes matter, regardless. And so the arguing scientific evidence of the Bible is kind of basically allowing the opponent to have a chance at winning, and they can't win on the narrative side. So
you're more likely to be persuaded by Tolkien than William Lane Craig.
Far more, yeah. And also it just seems to me a more sensible strategic position because they've got nothing when it comes to the narrative.
Yeah, well, so I'm a big fan of C.S. Lewis as well. And I think the brilliance of Lewis was he actually integrated those things together because he was a very clear thinker, very rationally minded, very analytical in some ways, but also an excellent storyteller and somebody who deeply understood myth and narrative and the need for a compelling heroic story. And I think Christianity offers the best of all worlds in that sense, because it is the greatest story ever told. It is the greatest of all heroes' journeys. Now, what somebody like Peterson is sort of trying to do is kind of see Jesus as, well, he's the ultimate hero, he's the archetypal perfect man. There's only so far that you can really go with that because Jesus has to be unique. But I mean, I find if you go back to the Gospels, it is an extraordinary, compelling narrative. I mean, just like go through them, just read them and feel the pathos of it. Just the moments between Jesus and his disciples, and then Jesus, the agony in the garden, the agony of the cross, and then the eucatastrophe, to use a great Tolkien word, the eucatastrophe of the resurrection, just when it's darkest. And Mary Magdalene is weeping, and she can't even recognize Jesus, and then he just says, Mary. And that's it. She says, Rabbi. And so I think you can have it all, really. But it does ultimately have to be grounded in something true. So I have to confess, I'm not a big fan of William Lane Craig myself. I don't think he necessarily does a great job selling the story, even though some of his arguments are okay. And so I think we need to come up with better ways of getting people excited about Christianity, getting them excited about the story, about the narrative. Part of that actually might be, it's a bit of a side note, but I think we need to create good fiction. We need more inklings, more new inklings. And Tolkien and Lewis kind of realized, I'm going to reach more people if I write books like Narnia than if I keep writing books of essays.
What is it about Lewis that you mentioned earlier has sort of struck a chord?
Huh? I already have. Like, do you think it's a coincidence that my book is called The Garden of Lies? You don't need to read it. Look at the name. Okay. Honestly, though, Isekai Christianity would be kind of fire. Isekai, you saying like an anime of Christianity? Or like, Isekai is a genre of Japanese anime where the protagonist near the start of the story dies and is reincarnated or transported into another world, another dimension, whatever you want to say. Yeah, I can see it too. It's ready-made for it. So Roland, I'm curious, what angle would you put on that? Like someone today dies and goes back to follow Jesus, or like Jesus dies and is isekai'd into another world? Like, what angle would you put on that? Well, there was this anime short I remember being watched on stream about the crucifixion. Yeah, we've watched quite a bit of content about the crucifixion on this stream, for sure. Eh.
Do you want me to make you some tea?
Yep, and the collagen, and then it's got to cool down before we put the creatine in it, but the creatine afterwards. If it were me and I were writing it for profit, I'd do it as a flash forward of Judas into the Matrix and him seeing the end result and thus going back and doing his thing. Into the Matrix? So wait, so Judas is somehow brought forward in time and sees that he needs to betray Jesus for the kingdom of God to come to fruition, and then that motivates him to go back and betray Jesus? That would be... That is some high people shit right there. I don't like it because it heroizes Judas, who was a piece of shit. Yeah, he was not a hero. I can only presume that the only reason Jesus ever had him among the flock was because he was like, yep, I need that guy to kill me. Like, yep, that's the guy. That's the one that does the thing. Fucking bastard.
Embezzler. I got terrorist.
Yep. I do feel compelled to say that I'm sure Jesus didn't actually think that way about Judas, but I do.
The way that Lewis thinks about the...
What's the matter? What's wrong, sweetie? What's wrong, Amnes? Why are you growling at me? She started doing this thing where she growls at you. It's really funny, but it's also kind of weird. Why the name Judas is not popular among Muslims. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would say comparing Ellen DeGeneres to Nosferatu is a pretty fair comparison.
Problems that he's tackling is a lot richer than
What? Yeah, that one.
most people, actually. It's a lot of people find themselves. I have my way of approaching this. I'm going to follow that through to its logical conclusion, which is perfectly normal and perfectly fine. But Lewis thinks a level or two below that, and then comes to a richer and deeper conclusion at the end of it. Like the abolition of man is just such a good example of this, where Gaius and Titus would. Why wouldn't they do the things that they're doing? Because they're not being critical of the very paradigm itself. And Lewis is getting beneath that and saying, well, look, this is where we end up if we treat man as just a fungible piece of meat that's floating on a rock in space. And he's right about that. He's fundamentally right. And it's not something that's self-evident. And that's one of the things I like about this.
I suppose this does edge us towards.
It wasn't mentioned there, but I do feel compelled to say, because this is the work of Lewis I'm most familiar with, the screw tape letters. Everyone should read the screw tape letters. Ugh. So good.
Apologetics, argument territory, because one of the fundamental issues that I've often been in the middle of between atheists and Christians is, well, how do we ground the concept of human value, and that there is a kind of intrinsic wholeness to being a human that we can't just be described in purely material terms, and it does potentially lead to those kinds of transhumanist sort of outcomes that he was describing in The Abolition of Man.
That's why I don't call myself an atheist, really. Well, I would say I'm agnostic, really, because I haven't got an answer for any of this. And I don't see anyone else having an answer for it either, because I know it's a...
Well, Christians say they do have an answer.
Well, sure, but on its own terms, it's an answer that an argument is kind of impossible to answer. So, I mean, I really get the feeling that it's not going to be possible to win back materialists to religion en masse. I unfortunately, I think that's true.
Despite a few wins in that.
There will obviously be a small cohort of people, but en masse, I don't think that's going to happen. But what I think is possible is to raise generations of children in the future who understand the importance of the Christian religion and its heritage to the West and its traditional place in the Western heart generally, and nurture that in the way that Lewis is talking about in The Abolition of Man, where the part of them that is appraising and allows them to say that this waterfall merits the beauty, that's being killed off in our schools all day, every day. And I think actually it'd be worth us being aware, it really is happening, and it really is a problem, and it's not natural. Like, I've got 4 children, trust me, they all have the sense of wonder that Lewis is speaking of. They will be those people that Gaius and Titus are slowly but surely killing off, and we have to be very conscious of that. And if I were given control of the education system now, it would look very different and probably very Christian, even though I'm not one myself, which I realize is ironic. But I view myself as living in a paradigm where I've had something taken away from me. Before I was able to walk, this had been taken away from me, and I don't want that taken away from my children. So, for example, my son, a couple of years ago, he's 10 now, but when he was about 6 or 7, he's in a multicultural school, as children are, and he has friends who are Indian and they're Hindus, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, what am I? Am I a Christian?" I'm like, "Yes, you're a Christian." So, and I arbitrated a discussion between him and my eldest daughter, which said, "No, we're not Christian." I was like, "Yes, we are Christian." Like, just, this is where we are in the paradigm where we're Christian Englishmen. This is what we are, and you be aware of it, basically. And so he's very readily said, "Oh, I like being Christian. I like Jesus. That's brilliant, son. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm glad you get to have something I didn't have."
Okay.
And it really hit me when we got our children baptized. So my wife wanted all of our kids to be baptized in her local church, which I kind of hate. It's not the baptism; it's the church itself. It's just this empty red brick structure, and it just kind of reeks of modernity, And so I'm like, look, if I'm going to go to religion, I want religion. Right?
What an old building.
Yeah, it's not just. It doesn't have to just be an old building, but I want like they have like modern pop songs playing there, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I want hymns. I want, let's do this properly if we're going to sit through it, right? And so, yeah. Anyway, when we were getting baptized, they actually did have hymns, and I was sat there. I've never heard this before. I don't know the song. I don't know.
What was that? Well, I think when he says proper, he's very clearly alluding to a more traditional, a more ancient incarnation of the religion. But that is of course an atheist's or an agnostic's, or arguably it depends on who, because Catholics and Orthodox would obviously make this a similar argument, but as we Protestants would argue, the only proper way to worship God is in a joyous voice, and everything else is irrelevant. Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. When I say the only thing that matters is that we praise with a joyous voice, I am saying that with a bedrock, foundational, unspoken condition of your theology is good. And if your theology is good, you are not going to write a banal, pointless worship song. Although, to be fair, I do think that Protestants are guilty, even if their theology is good, they are still guilty of writing a lot of very basic bitch worship music that is so generic and one note. It's like, okay, yeah, God is great. Can we talk about why? Can we elaborate on a reason God is awesome besides? Oh yeah, I would say that's some of the problem, but I think a lot of it is that in the church we have an issue where no one wants to do it, so when anyone pops up to do it, it's accepted because no one was doing it, and because of that we end up with slop. Boom, 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 boom. Look, mommy, I can bounce. Boom, 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 boom. Mwah.
I think you might like heat green.
We have not checked out the Direwolf update yet, Maru. We have been struggling as usual to get through this 30-minute video for the past 2 hours. To be fair, to my credit, we're almost there. We're 22 minutes in. No, we couldn't, because then I couldn't understand shit they're saying. Yes. I watch Peterson Academy courses on 0.15. Like, I can't watch shit on normal speed. One at a time. Well, see, I watch my entertainment on normal speed, like movies, anime, cartoon, like anything that's entertainment, I watch on 1 speed. Politics, news, education, 0.125. Yep.
Like, I want to learn the thing. Can brevity is the essence of wit. Hi. I get this sticky with collagen.
Did you...
It's still too warm for the creatine.
Right, so I'm just, yeah. Okay. Hey, Amnes. What are you doing, silly? What, Amnes, where are you trying to go? You're gonna fall.
Are you trying to get in there?
Right. Are you trying to go to baby jail? Whoa. Okay.
The tune, I don't know the lyrics. So I'm just, like, watching everyone around me, like my mum, my dad, my aunties, my uncles, who themselves were forced to go to church when they were young, and they hated it. And they themselves are all atheists. But my dad is there singing with his chest out, like, oh, I don't, you know, and my mum's singing well as well. She's not enjoying it as much as my dad. But I can tell from my dad that what this is nostalgia. He's 10 years old on Sunday morning in the church singing when everything was normal and secure, and I don't have that. And I realized that was something that was
missing. Yeah.
And so when my chum said I'm interested in religion, that's great.
Any thoughts on any of what Carla's shared there, Becca?
Well, I think that's beautiful. I think that's great that you're not hindering them. You know, you're just allowing them to explore and to feel free to reclaim their heritage in that sense. So I was thinking a little bit earlier, one of my favorite quotes, which I got via Lewis from God in the Dock, I think, from the essayist statesman A.J. Balfour, which is that in order for a creed to be truly consistent, there has to be a consonance between the accepted theory of origins and the accepted value of results. So what you have is something valuable, something that was taken away from you, like you were saying. And so you get to think about, well, where did that come from? Well, it was handed down to my grandfather by his father, da, 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 da. Okay, but where did it come from, though? You keep going back and back and back and back and back. And eventually you hit this singularity, and it's sort of like the beginning of the world. I mean, and Tom Holland will talk about this, right? And you sort of have to ask yourself, this seems so valuable, but if my theory of origins is, nothingness, just this like meaninglessness, then this is not adding up. So another C.S. Lewis thing, I don't remember where this is from, but something about, you get to the end of the math problem, and you get something that obviously can't be right. So you have to go back and figure out what went wrong. And I think that's what civilization has to do en masse at this point.
Amen.
You can't just keep bumbling forward. You have to stop. You have to turn around, go back, figure out what went wrong.
I think one issue with this is that we're not properly orienting ourselves as a civilization, because the boomers did this for themselves, and that's not the right thing to do. They should have been thinking, what's good for my children? And I'm not trying to condemn an entire generation, but let's be fair, they were a pretty self-centered generation. And I've got to the point where now my wife is like, right, so we're going to take the kids to church. And I'm like, I don't want to, but I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to. And so basically...
Don't be a boomer, yeah.
My wife wants to start taking the kids to church, and that means my Sunday mornings are gone. But it's something that probably has to be done. Even though I'm not going to enjoy it, probably, my children will be thankful when they're older. And as my parents, and I don't blame my parents either, it's not their fault. It was part of the zeitgeist of the times, right? They didn't know what they had, they didn't know what they were assuming would always be with them, and they didn't know what the consequences would be 50 years later. It's not their fault, and it's not worth pointing fingers and placing blame, but this is the consequence of that breakage of the tradition of the religious heritage of the West, and there's only one way to put it back together.
It's such a fascinating thing just to hear you talk in these terms about being sort of reluctantly being dragged into church because it's good for the kids. But it's fun, and it's a very different conversation to the one you and I probably would have had even 10 years ago, maybe.
Oh, undoubtedly.
And all I can say is, well, obviously I know you'll be open to potentially learning something by going on to church, but if it is a very boring sermon, bring along your copy of C.S. Lewis and just have it on.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea.
You can never go too wrong.
I tell you what, and that's another thing about C.S. Lewis. You just don't get the chance. He's rereadable.
Oh yeah, relevant right now. It's like where this was written in 1940, but it could have been written for today. It's
It
fabulous.
was just something he dashed off to a friend or a fan or whatever. It's like, gosh, I don't think, think about if somebody, our emails wouldn't be worth collecting between covers someday, right? But because he was Lewis, his letters are.
I saw you kind of nodding as well in agreement to sort of the fact that Carl prefers the older forms.
Oh, amen. Gosh, I can't. I mean, I people I dearly love, and I don't want to, denigrate them or their taste in any way, but I am going to kind of denigrate their taste a little bit because it is. I grew up with a couple of different old hymnals, but all old and all just like the good old hymns, and it's really sad because there is a gradually, sort of falling away of knowledge of older kinds of music, where you'll think it's going to be a hymn and that they tack on.
And we're looking at you.
Sorry, Chris.
So Christmas Eve, my wife was like, "Oh, can we go to the church?" I said, "Yes, of course, we went to the church." I feel duty bound to not say no. And so we went to this service Christmas Eve with the kids. And instead of doing hymns, which I thought, okay, I'm on hymns, but I'll do it because it's good to them. Instead of doing hymns, what they've done is redubbed a pop song with Jesus. And I actually came out of that angry.
You heard the Jesus-y version of Hallelujah? That's one of the worst.
No, it wasn't even like a good pop song. It was like a very contemporary, it's something you'll hear on the radio that was terrible. I can't remember what it was now. But I was just like, my God, I'd rather a choir singing than this.
Well, all I can say is good for you for being there and being willing to kind of, grit your teeth and make that happen.
Very angry about it, trust.
You'll probably find there's another church down the road where that might suit your aesthetic tendencies.
This is my wife's sort of ancestral church, where she was baptized, her parents were baptized, and so I can't.
We make sacrifices, don't we? So I'd be fascinated to pick it up again, maybe in a year or two, just to see what all this church going how it's turned out for you.
But to be honest, I might raise it with them. I might say it's a female vicar or whatever the person in charge is. Is there any chance you just be a bit more old-fashioned? I think actually that might get people on.
Yeah, there's going to be another contingent in the church saying, "Can we be a bit more modernist?" Any church leader finds themselves in a bind.
I'm not sure, because I look at the people. They don't look very impressive either. So I'm wondering if I can.
So you can be part of the young fogey brigade, bringing back the old.
I want a bit of fire and brimstone. I was expecting lectures. I was expecting a lecture from the Bible, a moral lecture from the Bible. Nothing of the sort. I was like, come on.
Well, duly noted, and thank you so much for the fun conversation. And thanks for being so candid as well about the journey you've been on, Carl. It was really fun.
I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Bethel, for being foil.
Oh, holy shit, guys. We actually made it through a video. This has got to be some kind of an adventurous record.
Oh, wow. It must be like a sign or something.
Panda, have you ever once just not been a literal ass? Hey Wolf, you understood how I meant that, right? Okay, cool.
What, baby?
He's doing it. He's doing the thing. Hey guys, look, he's doing the meme. Panda, we know why you said it. We know why you said it. Wolf, help me out here.
What, baby? What's the matter?
What's wrong, sweetie? What's wrong? Is Panda annoying you too?
What? What's the matter?
Does your hair screw up the same way Daddy's does?
I think so. I was just observing that earlier. It's like I noticed you started getting some curl clumps on top of your head.
All right, dire wolf update. Quick quick deload after that intellectual heavy lifting?
You know, it's been an amazing 6 months since Romulus and Remus were first born. We've had a great opportunity to get to observe them grow and develop and hit all of their milestones. Now we're coming up to the point in their life where they're about to go to their first doctor's appointment, their first annual exam. When they do that, we're going to have this amazing opportunity to take blood, to use CT imaging to get really advanced ideas of what's happening to, within their skeleton and their musculature. So today, Romulus and Remus, at a little more than 6 months old, weigh a little more than 90 pounds, which is about 20% larger than a standard gray wolf. So we can really tell that the dire wolf genes are kicking in, and then we're getting these nice large wolves that are much more representative of what we saw in the ancient specimens. Khaleesi is a little smaller, a little younger. She's a female, so she's a little more petite. Today she weighs about 35.
My name is Paige McNichol. I am manager of animal husbandry at Colossal, and I am the manager of the team that takes care of the daily care of the dire wolf. As of right now, the roles in the pack are in flux because they're growing up and they're still youngsters. But right now, Remus is really taking that alpha role and Romulus is stepping down and being more subordinate. So he's kind of the beta, and their personalities really play to those factors. Remus really likes to watch things and he figures stuff out. He's also a little bit smaller, so sometimes that's interesting to think that the smaller of the two would be the more dominant, but he's crafty and he's always watching. Romulus, he likes to go out first, which is very much of a beta trait, to be the one in front while the leader's leading from the back. We can see that when they eat, we can see that when they play, when they explore new things. And it may not stay that way as they continue to grow up. That may change. It could change when we add.
Who said I was using my kid as a prop?
What?
Right. Like, my daughter is with me on screen. That doesn't mean she's being used. It's not like, oh, look, pay attention to me because I have a baby. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right. You would think. Like...
I would defer.
God, some people, man. Right?
What?
Khaleesi into the mix. As they're still young, that pack dynamic isn't set. It's still very fluid. Romulus and Remus are eating pretty much their adult diet, even though they are not adults. Their diet is that would be very similar to what we'll give them as an adult, and they are eating high quality dog kibble and ground meat, which is human grade. Sometimes we'll switch it out with some chunk meat, which is a soft tissue meat. They also get some organ meats. They'll get access to bones. They really like rib bones and knuckle bones. As they continue to get older, we will start adding in some whole prey items, which are bigger chunks to give them access to meat and help them develop those abilities and instincts where they would be eating on a group just like they would in the wild, so eating some type of carcass. Romulus and Remus are together pretty much all the time. Khaleesi's gonna join the pack as soon as she's big enough to do so safely, so we have to kind of let her grow up and catch up with the older brothers, Romulus and Remus, and we want to make sure that we have done all of our steps so it is very safe and a positive experience for all three of them. So it's really taking our cues off of her size, and then as they go through what we call the howdy process, where they can see each other, smell each other, but not interact, and we see complete positive behaviors from that, and that it seems that they're going to get along, then we'll go ahead and move to the next step.
So before we make the introduction of bringing Khaleesi into the group with the boys, we're going to be...
Normally that makes you happy.
What?
Be looking for really strong indicators that they are socially compatible. We're really excited about that. We'll have a lot of opportunity in sort of a stage-gated process where Khaleesi gets closer and closer to the boys until one day we're able to open the doors and put them all out on the preserve together.
The way they're talking about finally having the dogs, wolves, interact, I'm just like, have any of you ever raised dogs or canids of any kind? Like, How so? How so?
What?
Wolves generally do not shred their family members. If it smells like me, it's family. What was that? How they get what? What do you mean? Well, yeah, but being pushed out of the pack for breeding reasons or assertion of breeding rights reasons is not a factor when, because wolves are not known for inbreeding. So the fact that they're all siblings, that would not be an issue. Oh. Oh.
You want kitty?
Oh, that is super cool. Either way. I want one too.
You're sweaty. Are you hot?
Oh yeah, I've wanted a pet wolf. I've wanted a pet wolf basically since I was, I don't know, 10. Suspect blaming. Are you going to any concerts this summer? I'm going to see Eden Golan. She's my fave artist. I have no idea who that is. Eden Golan. I don't... Anyways, I have no idea who Eden Golan is, and Israeli singer. Huh. Never heard of this person. But I don't have any plans to go to any shows. What, Panda? No, we don't. I don't mind crowds. I've been to plenty of shows, mostly EDM. I do enjoy me some shows. This feels astroturfed.
Yeah.
I didn't say think, I said feels, first of all. Second of all, because it feels astroturfed. She sang at Eurovision last year. Yeah. No clue who that is, dude. Okay. Alright. Now I want to get to this nonsense because it's in the title. Stop it. I really hate that feature. I fucking hate that feature. Okay.
You may be familiar with a 20th century liberal philosopher called John Rawls, and you might know his
Or you may not
famous
be.
Veil of Ignorance thought experiment from his most important work, A Theory of Justice. Rawls invites us to consider the kind of world we would like to build if we didn't know what social station to which we would be born. Given how we don't know the circumstances of what our birth will be, it is tempting to suggest that the world should be liberal, so that we will be born into a country that has no slavery, that has universal human rights, limited government, material prosperity, social freedom, etc. Because this will secure to us a life of ease and comfort, which is surely preferable than choosing the alternative. Given this natural and inevitable tendency, then, Rawls argues that this gives liberals the justification
Wow. That piece of shit popped in here literally just to say that I was scum and then left. What a douche.
To remake the world in liberalism's image. But we can push back by asking what all of this presupposes, because it's not the...
Okay, we're gonna get you some more tape. That's what we're gonna do. It's okay.
Well, I mean, if you really understand it, you should be able to summarize it in a few sentences. And what exactly is Kantian?
Sure, we refer when we speak. The physical body then precedes the consciousness it creates, and the consciousness is entirely dependent on the brain for its formation and character. Indeed, we seem to have plenty of proof of this. There are many examples of people's personalities changing after suffering brain damage, so there must be some kind of causal mechanism in the brain which generates the I we consider ourselves to be. Rawls, of course, viewed the veil of ignorance as merely a thought experiment, and didn't endorse any of these metaphysical commitments that it would have entailed. But this line of thought still permeates liberal philosophy, and is indeed a core part of the assumptions of some of its most prolific outgrowths. The liberation of the consciousness from the confines of its own body seems to be a fundamental conceit that is concealed within liberalism. Every liberal attempt to discuss morality naturally asserts the primacy of the consciousness over the body which produced it, and if Kant is to be believed, it is the very seat in which true goodness really resides. Kant sought to discover what could be considered good in itself, without reference to any external contingent effects, and the conclusion he landed upon was a good will. A good will is the only thing good in itself. But by what standard? Positive intentions? Are these not just a series of chemical reactions in the brain which produces them? By what standard can we use to consider these to be good? Kant would tell us it's because we are acting out of duty, and not because of expected consequences, and the only method by which these duties can be derived is from reason, which just happens to be the primary tool of consciousness. One could cynically claim that the bias of the consciousness is obviously towards reason, in fact. However, this still doesn't answer the question of by what standard something becomes good or bad. Kant gives us the formula, well, in fact...
Good confident. Welcome to the stream. I do not recognize that profile picture at all. You remember Good Confident? I wish I could say the same. Yes. But Twitch seems to defollow people a lot. So... No, they're not a first-time chatter. But yeah, Twitch has definitely defollowed people from me before. Like, you're not the first person to come in here and tell me that, so... It's supposed to. It's supposed to, for sure, yeah. I don't know enough about Conti to answer the question.
We would have to will a maxim to be a universal law. For example, if I should hold that I should not steal, could I will this to be a universal maxim for all mankind? For example, if I should hold that I should not steal, could I will this to be a universal moral maxim for all mankind? If the answer is yes, then we have a categorical imperative. There are several objections to this formula that aren't really very interesting for this discussion. What I think is most interesting here is that this, I think, fails to justify itself. If we can will that nobody ought to steal, and this applies to everybody in all times and all places, then we have indeed satisfied Kant's categorical imperative. But why should we hold a prejudice against theft? If the consequences have no moral bearing on the duty, how did the duty against theft come about? Why is it wrong to steal if the consequences of theft are not a part of the moral calculation? It must be that theft has some kind of negative outcome that informs the prescription against it. Otherwise, why do we care about it at all? It seems that one could actually lay the charge against Kant that he has smuggled consequentialism into his deontological ethical system, which was meant to privilege the consciousness alone. And in the desire to find the locus of morality only in reason, this not only denies the source of reason itself, which is the brain, but also leaves itself untethered from the world in which it expects to operate, as if morality is merely a hypothetical exercise. No, morality is what happens in the real world, and it dictates events and our reaction to them. It is not purely abstract. It's also the fantasy of liberating the consciousness from the material realm that also underpins the transgender concept of being born in the wrong body. This, of course, cannot happen, because it would have required us to have existed prior to our bodies, and that would need a lot of explaining from the transgender activist that would doubtless require them to invoke religious language to explain themselves. Perhaps they could agree that, prior to our incarnation, we are in fact a soul in some kind of celestial sorting room, which allocates consciousnesses to brains as the person is being born and occasionally makes mistakes. Instead, I think a liberal really has to consider it more reasonable to look at things as they actually appear to be, and conclude that the consciousness, being a product of the brain, is affected by any issues with the brain. To think you are born in the wrong body is probably a mental health condition, not the product of a divine misallocation. Whether you believe in spirituality or not is not the issue here. The problem is that, on its own terms, the materialist worldview finds itself in places which it...
Like I said, confident. I have no idea. I literally just don't know what else to say. Like I said, you're not the first person to waltz on in my door and be like, hey, what the hell, I was unfollowed. I mean, what do you think? There you go. Yeah, do you think that I hacked into your account and removed your follow from my channel? Like,
What?
right. Exactly. Right, exactly. We do know the answer. Twitch doesn't like me, and so they will routinely just knock off a follow here and there.
Yeah.
It is also possible that they will take accounts that they think might be bot accounts and remove follows that they do. and olive branch that Twitch doesn't deserve. It's possibly just a good old-fashioned software bug. Unlikely, but possible. Like I said, it's an olive branch. It's possible. 1 second. Ugh. I follow conservative Christians and real life channels like fishing, but I get mainly suggested the Rainbow Mafia. Everyone gets suggested the Rainbow Mafia. Pretty much.
Must invoke non-materialist concepts to properly explain to itself. Moreover, the transgender philosophy has raised the importance of the comfort of the consciousness to such a degree that it has rendered the body itself as the fundamental source of oppression. Simply existing in a physical state with which the consciousness somehow believes it does not align is now sufficient to justify surgical reconstitution. But where do these desires originate, if not from the body itself? If the brain is no longer responsible for the things the consciousness believes, then where does the desire to become the opposite sex originate, and how does modifying the body satisfy the consciousness if there are no other connections between them? This metaphysical confusion is also how it can be asserted by liberals that, in fact, patriotic nationalist sentiment is somehow lowbrow, or thuggish, or ultimately irrational. You have doubtless heard liberals make bizarre moral pronouncements, such as, you can't be proud of your country because it was just an accident that you were born there. What they're saying is, you didn't choose the country of your birth, and therefore you can't be proud of it. It is but a historical accident that you were born there, and not somewhere else, and therefore you get to claim no credit for the good condition of your country. This is preposterous for many reasons. The first is that it ignores the concept of cause and effect. It is not, in fact, an accident that I was born to my parents. Indeed, it could not be further from being accidental or due to random chance. It is actually inevitable that I am a product of my parents, and I couldn't have been a product of anyone else's. Had I different parents, I would have different genetics, and I would be a different person altogether. The only time someone with my name and position in the world would or could be born is to my parents and their particular genealogies. Secondly, it presumes the same celestial sorting room as the transgender argument for the pre-existence of the consciousness. We are formless minds, just waiting to be allocated to a body upon the earth, in Rawlsian fashion, with no prior knowledge or power over where it will be put.
He's really cooking. He's really cooking them right now. Like, oof. I don't even have anything of like serious substance to add. Like, he's just saying it all. So satisfied.
Celestial sorting room which randomly allocated me to England and my parents who were born there instead of to some other place in the world was just an accident, as if history has no bearing upon us and we are all born anew at year zero, with history beginning only at the inception of our own consciousness. But it's the opposite of this. Far from being an accident of birth, it was instead ordained by the nature of reality that I would be a product of my parents. It was in essence written in the stars at the form of destiny that you will be born in your country to your parents, and it could not be any other way. Thirdly, this does not mean that one cannot take pride in one's country. The liberal perspective holds that unchosen inheritances are nothing to be proud of. The power of the will is in its decision-making capacity. The goodness of its morality is through conscious choice. The things we are born into, which are not a product...
Mm-hmm. Right. There is something. So I wish this was my thought, but I'm pretty sure I got this from Sargon, if I recall correctly. It was Sargon, I think it was Sargon. But I was listening to someone talk about this exact issue, and they said something very poignant and insightful, and that is that these people that you see waving the Mexican flag in the country in which they have illegally immigrated, namely the U.S., because that's, the one that they do it to. Those people are doing that not because they think that Mexico is so great or that they want to move back there or anything like that. What they are doing is demonstrating that the person holding the flag and the people immediately surrounding them are part of a certain group. They are establishing a group identity that exists underneath the symbolic banner of that flag, and that they are asserting their right to exist in our territory regardless of our perception of their legitimacy. Maru said it in a single word. They're fucking colonists. And a colonist force that is not welcome is known as an invader. In other words, they're a hostile force and we should be shooting them. And no, I don't take that back. Yep. Yep. You'd be... Is who Joseph Stalin? But yeah, 100%. In the national pride of the citizenry is such that they simply will not tolerate someone marching in their streets, flying a foreign flag and burning shit down. They just won't do it. There's only a couple countries that have been browbeaten into allowing that, and funny enough, they're all English-speaking Western countries. Imagine that.
Of our agency are therefore at best morally neutral to the liberal, although in the case of the nation state and its majority culture, it can easily through this prism be framed as a force for oppression. However, this doesn't really properly characterize in what a country actually consists, as it is far more than merely a question of whether one consented to be a part of it or not, and our effect on it is much deeper than the liberal standard would imply. The character of a country is drawn from the gestalt of the people of which it is made up. The character of the people in general becomes the impression a person draws from it, through many small interactions, of which we might not bear much thought. The nature of the way the people in the culture deal with their problems has a real and tangible effect on the kind of country people consider it to be. The intent, the method, and the consequences are all important features of how a nation solves its problems, and we can call it good or bad because of them. Moreover, if we can make such judgments of the nation as a whole, then we can also ascribe any virtues to the individuals of that nation, as it is them collectively who carry the culture within themselves and project it outwards in their actions. If a group of people, even a very large group, have general characteristics that are worthy of approval, then we can say so. And the people who comprise that group can be generally proud of themselves for being the thing that they are. Conversely, if a group of people have general characteristics that are not good, and are prone to vice or criminality, then we can say so, and that group ought to be ashamed of itself and mend its ways. And lastly, we are really speaking of ourselves when we say that we are proud of our country. We are a product, to some degree, of our environments, and if we have been made into good people that we like by our upbringing and habits, then we can say with some strength that the society in which we were raised has played a large part in that. It's not the only important thing, and we are moral agents with the power to choose, but the society in which we are raised is certainly very influential. If we find that society to merit our approval, then we can approve of it. It's only if we don't like ourselves that an excuse not to change. The point I'm driving at with this video, and I'm sure you've noticed by now, is that nobody is born in the wrong body. It's not possible to be born in the wrong body, and this sets up a false dichotomy between mind and matter. The body you have is yours, it's the only one you'll get, and your consciousness is not separate to it. It is, in fact, a part of your body.
I love how he uses secular logic to arrive at a fundamentally Christian premise. Like, that really is... God, that is just some serendipitous shit as far as I'm concerned.
My name is Diddy.
Sure it is.
And I'm non-binary.
Sure you are.
My pronouns are she, they. And I'm queer.
What a gift to be here for who we are, this queering of the church.
Happy Pride to everyone except for my 7 children who have all betrayed me by being straight.
Bringing your kid to a pride parade is like bringing your kid to Mardi Gras.
Pride 2025 is here, and the only thing coming out is corporate bankruptcy.
For freedom, we're not going anywhere, and Pride is not just going to be a celebration, it's also going to be a protest.
I don't know what to make of this.
I think that's a load of shit. But it's not. See, Wolf, you just undercut your own argument there, and there's so much more that goes into that. The reason I say it's horseshit, a name fundamentally is a label that captures symbolically the essence of the thing. This is foundational to both Christian and Jewish theology. When Adam went through the garden and named the things, imbuing them with their lasting essence, you could say. And God gave man sovereign authority to name the things, including his own children. So when your parents name you, if you have you, and to shed symbolic covering and container of your essence is not a lightly done thing. 100% of the time, out of spite and disdain for their progenitors, and that is indicative of someone who wants to be separated from their ancestry, the roots of their identity, and sometimes even their very self. And so, no, it is not just a name. There's no such thing as just a name. I missed the first part of that because people were talking over each other. Summarize that. Yes. I don't know why you thought you'd get a different answer.
It's like, when are you gonna get he's principally consistent?
I wonder if it is low self-esteem or narcissism that causes people to engage in this self-harm. I guess it is one or the other. It's so that a name is not merely a name. So Confident raised a good point here. Many Christians changed their name historically when they converted. And that is a tradition that had both positive and negative connotations, such as when it was forced upon slaves that were brought over against their will. I agree that sometimes it is appropriate to change your name. If your parents were abusive pieces of shit and you change your name to shed any connection to them, I believe that is a reasonable thing to do. It depends, like, circumstance matters, context matters. My thing is, it's not something to be done with a cavalier attitude. Nope, absolutely not. And the reason why is because, as I've outlined, changing your name is something that must be done with a certain level of gravity and seriousness, and deciding to morph your identity around a delusion and due consideration that is necessary for such a decision. You are making a serious decision operating under a delusion. I do not respect your delusion. I will not humor it. I will not reinforce it, because if I were to reinforce a lie to you, I would be acting in sin. Correct.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in today's...
There we go. I was trying to find a pause frame that didn't absolutely unflatter her. It's like, Sydney's not a bad-looking gal. What was that? Oh yeah, they were humorous, but I was just trying to find one that didn't make her look ugly. What's this, Maru? Father Josiah defends the Crusades and says this about Islam. Based, but probably not going to get to it tonight. We're probably going to get to like a little bit of this video from Sydney. And yeah, like maybe 5 minutes of it, tops. and then bed. But let me get some water really quick, guys. Yep. Yeah, the Crusades were awesome, actually. Was a good video for sure.
This video is sponsored by Fume. So this is so many examples to illustrate my point, and it's a little of I'm putting together, namely because this is once again one of those videos that I had a really hard time putting together, namely because there are so many examples to illustrate my point, and it's a little overwhelming. It's so hard being asked to pick only my favorite psychos. This video was also quite challenging to edit on account of all of the nudity and inappropriate behavior, which probably makes its own point all by itself. So, you know, be gentle with me.
It does.
I've done the best I can with the cards I was dealt. I've now seen more naked man butts than I care to admit, and everything I've learned about kink has been against my will. Anyway, now, I don't know about the rest of you, but lately I have noticed a very big swing away, not only from Pride, but the LGBT community in general. Or the movement, I should say. Year on year, it seems that there was a huge emphasis placed on this community, and year on year, the movement and its objectives have expanded, giving us huge parades, events, and representation absolutely everywhere. But Pride 2020 other gays, is that what's happening? I'm sure you've all seen online that parades and events all over the place have been...
Well, here's the thing. Some of the gays are fatigued by other gays, but also USAD was broken up. Yeah. That's why. The shit was never organic. The shit was never something that was actually legitimate. It was always astroturfed by demonic elements using our own tax dollars against us. He won't.
Cancelled or scaled back. Others have been cancelled for low attendance numbers. Some organizers have been left hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole after major brands pulled their sponsorships, including MasterCard, PepsiCo, Nissan, Citi, DoorDash, just to name a few. Brands didn't bother changing their logos to the Pride flag like they usually would this time of year. Target has all but removed its Pride merchandise from stores after backlash over its trans-orientated items, including tuck-friendly swimsuits. Okay. White liberal women are very upset about this one.
Happy Pride Month. In my Target that used to have the Pride section, it's now all USA. Yay. It's an American summer.
This woman probably knows approximately 0 gay and lesbian people, and yet she's mad on your behalf. Very on brand. Some people have pointed out that Google is preoccupied with promoting Father's Day here in the US rather than changing its logo to anything Pride related. The corporate abandonment of Pride has been so severe that even left-wing outlets have been writing screech pieces shouting into the void about how this is all Trump's fault, pointing to his administration forcing the rollback of DEI initiatives. And honestly, maybe that's what a lot of this is about. Or maybe this also has to do with the fact that people, including gay and lesbian individuals themselves, are sick and tired of Pride and what the LGBT movement has become. And as a result of this grand disillusionment, and as a result of this collective disillusionment happening, And as a result of this collective disillusionment happening, I think that we are observing the collapse of a movement in real time. It's almost like when you let things get co-opted by extremists and psycho people, it drives normal people away. Absolutely crazy. Who would have thought? Gay and lesbian people who don't make their sexuality their entire personality have become disillusioned with the queer, trans, and gender-obsessed part of the movement, which explains the recent creation of organizations that demand the LGBs divorce the TQ+. I mean, let's be real. You know things have probably gone too far when you can't include all the letters in your psycho acronym and instead have to use a plus sign. Sometimes when I make these videos and therefore I have to think about these things a lot, it just occurs to me how unbelievably stupid most things are most of the time. More importantly, if the 2024 election is anything to go by, Americans in general have overwhelmingly shifted away from progressivism, and that change comes with an upheaval in attitudes towards social causes. For the first time in a long time, polls show a consistent but steady decline in the support for the LGBT+++ community.
For the last few days.
What?
It would have been so funny. I should have made this point the last time we were talking to Carol. But I should have been like, so you would like it if somebody made a dildo and a wine box flag to represent how you like to get off. And we hung those around the church everywhere because it made it more inclusive for you.
Gross.
That's the point I should have made, though.
Gross.
It would have been accurate.
It is accurate, but gross.
Yeah.
My phone is gay, by the way. That's unfortunate. You might want to dunk it in some holy water. I use dumb foam, so it is straight. All right, Wolf. Good night. God, my shoulder is killing me. That's funny. Smartphone demands to be touched all the time while dumb phone doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. It do be like that. It do indeed factually be that do.
Like smartphone, why for you be codependent this way?
Right.
But you know that's not healthy.
Right. It's like smartphone's on.
Smartphone's on.
Smartphone's on.
It's like, look, genius comes with mental illness, okay?
So often. Smartphone tries to be what it isn't, pocket computer, while dumb phone is content to be just a phone. I mean, smartphone actually is pocket computer though. Like, maybe not as good as desktop computer. Computer. All right. I just looked at the time, and it's 5 minutes into the video, as I said we would. So, work 6 days a week, yeah. Unlikely to happen. If you want me to be promoted, start getting people to buy my book so I can make my publishing company successful. Panda, I'm not just a trainer, I'm the manager of the department. I can absolutely go above a manager. The question is, am I good enough at my job to become a assistant regional? And the answer is probably not. Okay. Everyone, I will see you. Anyways, everyone, I will see you tomorrow on the next adventure. We're probably going to pick right up where we left off because I want to finish the stuff we were looking at. Z, I will talk to you later. I hope we see you tomorrow.